Hello, friends, fans, and dairy products of all ages. This is Cheese of Ages, sicker than usual, giving a bit of a 2-for-1 deal review of both Global Agenda and Firefall, one of which is a really freaking old game from like 2006, I think. And the other one is a recent game still in beta, but mostly complete from what I see. There's still some things that need tweaking and adding and modification. But let's start off with Global Agenda. For an old game that has long since been set aside to develop other projects by the people who made it, Hi-Rez, who are the people who also made Smite, it is remarkably unpolished, actually. It's just kind of weird. Why is the button to interact with people and things U? Why is it not E? Or something reasonably close? It doesn't make any sense. And while I actually like the base mechanics of the game, where you've got like infiltrator, a engineer, a assault, and like a medic, these different types of like special agents that wear high-tech futuristic armor and are in a dystopian, sci-fi future where a corporation has taken over the world and you're freedom fighters. I generally don't really like much else about it. It would benefit a lot from a modern MMO, like coat of paint to it, like voice acting to the quests, so it's not just reading blank things and kind of feeling hollow. A slightly better soundtrack would help. Moving the key binding for interacting with things to E really helps that. And generally, just basically taking it with a new coat of paint would do a lot of good. But it also suffers from one thing, and design. It's basically, if you played this, you will see that the people who made this have really no idea at the time how to make a proper MMO. They were really making it more of a arena combat deal, because the PvP is a lot more developed and focused on in this than the PvE. There's almost no substance in the PvE. And I don't know how long this goes on, but I'm nearly halfway to maximum level in the doing PvE content almost exclusively, and leveling entirely on PvE content. I've reached midway to the max level of 30. Didn't take that long, and I'm still in Desert Wasteland. Where's the whole Global Agenda free agent, like you're supposed to be like an agent operative? Answer: it's in the Dungeon Finder PvP kind of thingy. There's like dungeons you queue for that are PvE, that are decent, but the game is long dead, so you're not going to be able to do any of it. And it generally, it's a clear indication that the people who made Global Agenda had no idea at the time how to make an MMO, because the PvE arena-based section that is just open world doesn't have the theme in it. It's just you are your class, and you are in a desert wasteland doing generic MMO missions. You're not even fighting corporate agents, or you are fighting random rogue robots and mutations. You are not fighting, and bandits. You're not fighting corporations. And the theme of the thing is corporate espionage. The corporate espionage is entirely in the arena and dungeon finder thing. It's nowhere found in the first 15 levels of the open world content. Global Agenda 2 was announced, in which they delayed work on it so they could focus on Tribes Ascend and Smite, and they intend on going back to it once they get Smite finished, apparently, allegedly. But then they just go ahead and make another statement that proves that they really did not have any intentions of making a solid MMO and were focused on arena combat during a large amount of the development cycle of the first one, and the fact that the sequel will not have open world, which kind of defeats the purpose. It's not an MMO anymore. The Global Agenda 2 is not going to be an MMO if it does not have open world. If it does not have open world missions, it's not an MMO. It's just a freaking online battle arena deal. Or like you can run instant missions, for PvE content. It's taking the MMO mainstays out of there and just having it freaking no open world. Strikes me as just freaking pointless. I will probably not be playing Global Agenda 2 if it doesn't have open world, honestly. Because if I have to queue for dungeons, I'm not going to... I might seem weird, but I actually prefer to only either play MMOs with friends or alone. Unless, of course, it's an MMO where people can wander freely into the mission, just join in and help out. Like in Firefall, for instance. Those are actually enjoyable. And I also enjoy the partying system in Star Wars The Old Republic, because it has kind of sort of that interaction element to it, where you're all participating in the storyline. But generally, I don't like freaking playing with random people on the internet, even though it's an MMO, and that's the entire point. And it won't have open world elements, so I won't be able to do any sort of soloing. If I can't find a group, I just can't play. That strikes me as like something I don't even want to bother with. That said, the core mechanics, the classes, and everything else about the classes in general and the gameplay is fun. You are a jetpack wielding, cyber armored agent, buzzing around battles using your jetpack for maneuverability and to get around faster. Engineer have like deployable turrets and force fields they can erect, and little like supply stations they can put up in there that'll heal and replenish your energy used for ammunition. And assault guys have things that they can use to bolster the defenses and their damage output. All in all, it had potential to be a really good game, but now it's dead, and has been for a while, and generally lacks a hell of a lot of polish. If I had to review it in its current condition, which is going to be its permanent condition, and I imagine was its condition when it was active, not counting the fact that it's dead, I would rate it a 5 out of 10, just because of the sheer lack of polish. Took 5 whole damn points away from it. That 5 points is entirely because the classes are built awesome and the theme is good. In my opinion, if they wanted to do an espionage-themed RPG, don't set the open-world environment in the middle of a desert wasteland, centered around a dome city, which is like a outpost way, way, way away from the corporation that's dominating the world, and it's basically a hub city where you'll never interact with the corporation. Have it where your hub city is your living quarters, player housing. It could be the same player housing as everyone else. You can just go into your own instanced apartment, and the only interactions you have with the people helping you out are via like communications over secured line. And have it where the open world environment has 2 forms. One where you walk around on the streets that has relatively little substance because you're in civilian garb, and you can go like buy like cosmetic things or little trinkets that aren't necessarily espionage inclined. And there's also like shops and back alleys where you can like go into the back alley and buy agent stuff that is harder to find sometimes by your like normal apartment connections. and have segments where occasionally you have to evade people on the evil corporation on the street without your gear because you went Civ mode. And like, if we don't want to go extreme perfect world, like have freaking part-time jobs in there that you could just go and do something and get a little bit of change. But I don't expect Civ mode to actually have any sort of substance to it, of any real depth aside from like some shops. It's just mainly there for like, oh, you have this element where you could just go around to the dance club in civilian clothes and like hang out and be socializing and be off-duty kind of feel to it. And then there's another element where you are strapped into your big suit of armor and your jetpack and all your gear, and when you're in that state, corporate guards will freaking attack you on sight because you're like a freaking rogue agent kind of deal. And you don't go on the streets because that's a death sentence. You know, you better get the heck off the streets. When you're in agent mode, you are mainly going to be going around in the rooftops, jetpacking from building to building, and going into mission locations in buildings from the rooftop access, and occasionally doing like rooftop-based battles. And it's possible to be knocked to the street and be in an incredibly bad situation down there whilst in the midst of a battle, but it's incredibly unlikely that you'll do that because the tall buildings have some classes able to cling to walls if they like go down and like move around on the walls, so they can like cling there and then like jetpack back up or something like that. That would be fucking awesome beyond all imagination. And it would have the open world environment just permeated to the brim with the theme, rather than just here you're in the wilderness. That would be a freaking awesome game, using the theme. Now, 12 minutes into this, we're going to actually review the second game. I was going for a two-parter dealy-majigging in here, Firefall. You might actually ask, if you don't know what Firefall is and haven't seen Global Agenda, or listened in detail to my description of the classes and have played Firefall, you will know why I'm reviewing both of them. But for those that don't know, Firefall, the classes, you could switch freely between them because they're in battle frames. Basically, like cyber armor that doesn't cover your entire body. It's like the soldier enhanced like exoskeletons. If you look it up there, the military's working on like suits that you wear that are like robotic attachments, like that are like strapped to your arm and they augment your strength. It's basically that to the umpteenth degree. And the base ones are essentially identical. And by essentially identical, I mean flat out identical to the classes in Global Agenda. And the structure of the abilities is flat out identical. You have a set of 4 abilities. There's like 3 abilities in Global Agenda where there was 4. And then there's another ability that you charge up by doing stuff in battle that is really powerful, just like in Global Agenda. The Engineer class has all of the same abilities as the Engineer in Global Agenda, aside from the fact that his charge-up move, instead of being a dome, is actually a giant turret you hop into and just mow people down. It's the only difference between the 2 Engineers, and the fact that your main weapon is a sticky grenade launcher. But essentially, turret, force field you can erect spontaneously, and a supply station that heals you and gives you ammunition. They're basically identical, and that level of identicalness carries over to all the other classes. There's an incredibly durable Gatling gun wielding battle frame, just like the assault one in Global Agenda. There's a medic class that specializes in poisoning enemies and healing allies at the same time, just like in Global Agenda. You know, there's a sneaky class. While there's no melee combat in this game, Firefall, like there's in Global Agenda, there's the sneaky sniper assassin class, and that is aesthetically very similar, actually. And The only class that isn't implicitly a blatant copy of the Global Agenda classes is the extra one, which is a DPS-focused shotgun-wielding guy. That is mobility and such like that. Mobile shotgun-wielding deal jig. That's the only class that's unique. And Global Agenda had a shotgun possibility. So, yeah. Classes virtually identical to the core classes that are like free are virtually identical to Global Agenda's classes. And there's 3 frames of each type. 2 you unlock. Mostly there's just going to be 1 you unlock and you don't bother with the 3rd one because only the default or one of the other ones will match your playstyle. There's a lot of the pay to unlock battle frames that I think are completely useless. But that's just my style of play. I don't see how I could use that and find that useful. And heck, I'd stick with the core engineer battle frame if the primary weapon wasn't sticky grenades that cause splash damage to friendlies. You know, and not like I directly damage you. I don't like weapons that like I project this thing and then I detonate it separately. You know, I have to hit you with the grenade half of the time, or be incredibly lucky and carpet bomb to detonate it successfully. I have to like really think and be obsessive about where I place it, and if I'm in a group, I'm hurting my team by using it. I don't like grenade launchers in weapons. They're trickier to aim, and they're generally more dangerous to wield than they are beneficial to wield. So, like a large majority of the time when I'm playing the engineer, I just stick to a secondary weapon assault rifle. You know, it does less damage in certain situations. Now, if I'm in a really bad situation where there's a lot of enemies, I'll switch to the freaking grenade launcher because, hey, I need explosions. However, Firefall has... It's sci-fi. It's not as extremely far in the future as, like, the Global Agenda. It also has a completely different theme to it. It's more like, basically, in the far future, an event happened that melded Earth with another dimension and changed it drastically. And battle frames are necessary to cause people to survive because these things called Chosen keep attacking and doing things. And of course there's bandits and stuff. And you mine with resources with these things called thumpers. And you do missions that will occasionally pop up. Either Chosens will try to attack outposts, or you'll like come across another team of people that's, you know, mining for resources. It's got a really nice element of, you know, you can just basically go to missions and like people will be all going to the same mission. Or like you get a notification that somebody's mining for resources and you go over to help them out. Get a chunk of the resources without taking away what they get. Or you'll like throw down a thumper and mine for resources and people will occasionally come to help you. And it's not dead because it's new. A lot of people playing it. However, there's a major glaring problem with this game. And despite the fact that it's really, really fun, there's no real point. You're doing these missions to gain resources to upgrade your battle frames. And you're upgrading your battle frames so you can do missions to get resources to upgrade your battle frame. Other than the intro, there's no storyline present in the game right now. The storyline is your experiences, you know, which at first is okay, like, oh, this is my own personal story, I'm feeling, yeah, I like it. And then you're like, wait, I'm just continually doing the same things all the time. And there's no advancement in progression of the storyline. I'm not feeling like I am overcoming trials. I'm just doing missions. There's not really an ongoing storyline outside of the starting mission, where you like get a vision. It's like, oh, you must stop the Chosen, or this place you are about to arrive in actually is going to be destroyed. And you have a vision of the future, like showing the destruction of that and your death and the death of all your friends. It's like, you must stop the Chosen. You must defeat the Chosen within a year, or you will die, and all your friends will die, and humanity will die. And then you like enter that and gain the permission to use the outpost terminals and stuff. You basically win the favor of the people you've been assigned to work for in the area, and then you're just doing missions infinitely, over and over again, often the same missions. And if you stay too close to hub areas, it'll be in the same locations over and over again. They need to implement a storyline of some kind, where like occasionally once you've like hit some form of progression with some value, they give you a story event. It doesn't even have to veer too much from the formula, where you could just, if I don't want to like make set missions that happen, and like they don't want to have that style where there's like scripted missions and stuff like that, they can just have notifications occasionally of like basically just make it dialogue where, okay, you are assigned this mission by this guy, and he wants you to do it because of this reason, and afterwards he says this to you, which progresses your interactions with that character. That's all you really need to do. Have some form of storyline in there. Have some form of character development. Even though there's repeat characters that you work with that are on your crew, you don't really interact with them much. You don't learn anything about them. You're supposed to apparently care that they are all going to die in the future, but you don't have any sense of camaraderie with them when they keep saying the same damn things all the time. There's not really a lot of storyline substance there. And don't get me wrong, the game is freaking fun, but I imagine you could get tired of it eventually. A lot of people say that MMOs are just a grind. Firefall is, if that was true, totally, and to an exaggerated extent, it's just a grind and gameplay. It's just good gameplay and grinding. Nothing else. And I mean, heck, the setting invokes so much potential for a good storyline. I mean, you're on a future Earth that is partially ruined and taken over by jungle because it was mutated by merging with another dimension. Heck, there's a massive vortex, there's a massive field of energy where if you cross through that, you enter the bad guy dimension, I imagine. That's death in there. There's vortexes of extra-dimensional craziness that shoot off shards of the other dimension and summon massive hordes of alien bugs. It's freaking got a lot of potential. It's an interesting setting. And it's like you're a merc in this environment, earning money and protecting people, fighting for the sake of humanity as sort of a freelance soldier. It has a lot of fucking potential. And the element of wearing these battle frames and switching between them to the situation you want. A lot of potential. But there's no storyline. There's not really a lot of incentive to play the game unless you are obsessed with grinding. Still, I would rate Firefall a solid 7.5 out of 10. If they implemented a storyline that was passable, it would get up into a 9. If they fixed the repetitiousness of the mission system a bit, I could even freaking go up into the 10 department, possibly. But it's still in beta. It's pretty much out of beta, honestly, in its stage of development, and it's been in beta a long time. But they're still going to add a lot of things, and they don't want to call this the finished game. Probably because there's not much game there, unless you like mindlessly grinding. Anyway, solid 7.5 out of 10 though, despite no storyline or incentive to play the game other than enjoying the gameplay and grinding. Fun game. Anyway, I am going to sign off, and you might note that in my Smite video I said I would be reviewing the Geb patch by now, but actually it was delayed until tomorrow as of the filming of this video. So I will be doing that within the next few days, once I've got my hands on him and played with his abilities some. I mean, I have some opinions based on his kit, but I really want to have seen it in play and how it's used. And rather than, like, state theory... Oh, that was an embarrassing sneeze. Sorry. Ill. And I'm too lazy and sick to edit that out. Anyway, I would rather not make a Geb video reviewing and talking about his abilities purely on theoretical analysis of it. Gotta see it in play and know how everything works for sure. So anyway, this is going to be Cheese of Ages sneezing off.